back to the Stormwater Creek podcast. I've seen too much of you guys in the last week. I've only had 3 days off, and my self-esteem is raised slightly, but has already been taking a giant hit, and we're 14 minutes into talking to each other. So, good to see you boys again.
Always. It's unfortunate you're not here in person.
Oh, I've got to go play softball with the ladies tonight. It's canasta night. So
that's the way to go. Just own it. Just own it. So that way it's less of a
Take the starch out of it.
For sure. Yeah, exactly. Take the starch out of it.
We're joined by the incomparable Joel Smith, live from Houston, Texas tonight. So, Joel, how you doing, buddy?
Not too bad.
Good. So, Joel is from BHA fame here in Texas, and how's everything going with the BHA crew?
It's just about to get ramped back up here.
Good. COVID put a damper on it. I'm sure, like everything, like it did for every other organization. And
yeah.
You guys got any cool things planned for coming up?
Well, we've done a few virtual pine nights, but ultimately, I think we're sort of like pushing off in-person stuff until 2021. So it's sort of like there's lots of new board members, getting them up to speed and onboarded.
Yeah, so maybe silver lining is somewhat a blessing in disguise, so you have time to get everybody kind of ramped up and all the protocols in place. That's cool.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely.
Out there fighting a good fight.
For sure, man.
Yeah. And it looks like we just the Senate just struck down that dude William Pendley from being the what was his job? He was the executive of the Interior
Director.
Yeah, BLM director. Yeah. Well, that's I understand that's pretty solid news.
It is solid news. He's not allowed to actually, in addition to the fact that they've nullified anything that he's done up to now, he can't do anything else before
anybody gets into place.
Actually have to put somebody in place and formally nominate him. So
interesting.
That's awesome. Then let's see what else on the front of public lands. We got a huge win with Pebble Mind, which seems to have been going. A massive hit from a standpoint of them being able to mine.
Yeah, and BHA was pretty headstrong about opposing that, as they everyone should be. But
yeah,
I mean, do you want to give some sort of a recap or an update, Joel? You can speak better than I can for sure.
Now, if you haven't heard, these tapes have come out, the Pebble tapes.
Oh yeah. Yep, yes. I did hear that.
Guys went in and did like a undercover investigation and were sitting with all the executives and got them to talk about how shady and connected they were with the entire administration. So
yep.
That's
great. It's great.
So it not only did it get kind of killed from a Corps of Engineers perspective, but it also has definitely taken a giant public interest hit as well. So
it's not dead yet, but it's it's
step in the right direction.
Positive from the perspective of keeping them from ruining that area.
Yeah,
absolutely.
No doubt.
And then the other thing is the VLCC, which is the
big deal down here.
Yeah, big thing down in Port Aransas, I think, down there, Corpus Christi area. I understand that there's some brouhaha going on between Corpus Christi and the tanker companies who are trying to put in that terminal tanker down there, and we need to get our buddy Brian Donovan on soon to
he's up to speed on that.
So I know that's going on right in our backyard, so hopefully that's something you guys can definitely sharpen your fangs on and get after. So teal season, man, we're gonna get to that. We're gonna it's like Christmas to me.
We're gonna ramp up here.
Where your mom and dad put the big present back in the back. They're like, you can't open that one first, but you see that thing back there. So we're gonna get to that here in a minute, but let's start with teal season. How's teal season down there for you guys?
Teal season was sort of hit or miss. We hunt we hunt predominantly public land, mostly on the coast, either south of Houston or like southeast of Houston, all the way to the Louisiana border.
Mm-hmm.
All those properties along that way, and there was like thousands and thousands and thousands of blue-winged teal, but it was hit or miss for us. Because there's so much water on the landscape.
Yep.
That I was talking about. We were sitting on that big deep pond that wasn't so great for teal. The problem was it was probably 6 or 8 hours before we got there. It was probably 6 or 8 inches shallower than it was when we showed up because of the storm surge that was coming in from whatever that tropical storm was that came through. So
Ada or whatever it is.
It definitely negatively affected their interest in landing on the water. So, but opening day, we, 3-4 of us went out to, a rice field and out on the Katy Prairie and almost got our limit. And that was really the best day of the entire, 3-week season for us. Cause like a couple of times we went out on some public land and, didn't see a bird for 3 hours, and then 2 came in and we shot one, and
out of nowhere comes smoking teal through. Yeah.
And then but it was cool because we got over that we probably hunted 6 or 7 times, and at least 3 of the hunts we took out brand new people.
Oh, that's cool.
Who had never duck hunted before. And we're, just wanted to get a feel for what it was like. So, took them out on public land, showed up, slept in the truck and did the whole first come, first serve thing and let them decide for themselves whether they wanted to be duck hunters or not.
Yep.
It's a way to teach them.
We talked to a lot of people about wanting to duck hunt, and up this far north, it's so hit and miss that I honestly just don't want to take a new duck hunter out teal hunting in DFW area, because you may not even see a bird, and they're gonna be like, "This is the worst." I'm like, well,
or you're gonna see birds.
Today is the worst, but yeah, it's not actually like this all the time, just most of the time. So
about the challenge, about the journey, right?
You and your challenges.
Yeah, I don't think we ever ended up on the X because it just. Every time we went, there was people shooting, but most of the time it wasn't us. So, like that first day, we got 17 for 4 people, and then the next day, I think we got like 4 or 5, and then the next weekend, it was like 1 or 2 on both days. And then our last hunt this past Saturday, we took 2 brand new guys out. One of them dumped over in his wader, had water in his waders, like on the way to the pond.
Better now than later.
Yeah.
Get it over with.
Now you know what it's like. So
yeah, don't do that during December.
Right. That was the upside of teal season is, he didn't have hypothermia by the time you got to
exactly.
Yeah, he was just squishy.
Yeah. A little damp.
He was crawling back to the truck when we were finished.
We had a fairly similar teal season as well here, just solid opening morning, and then just garbage from then on out. And they just fly right over us. There's really no finding the X up here. It's just. For teal.
Yeah.
They're here.
They're here. I think after the first day, it pushes a lot of them south because they all get shot at and they're heading that way anyway. So I think you've got 1 or 2 days in North Texas, and that's pretty much on public land, especially, and that's it. So
that's what I was.
And a little bit of the weather and stuff like that kind of pushed them around on that opening weekend for here.
Didn't y'all hunt Richland? Y'all got drawn for Richland Chambers last year, right?
Yeah,
we did.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it was big dog, not teal, but yes, we did.
But teal is like open access there.
Yes.
Is it?
Yes.
Why didn't we go there?
I heard some. Well, here's the thing: I heard some dudes who I know that are from like the Tyler area that said that there was like hundreds and hundreds of people that showed up, and they were. It was like a madhouse. And there's a couple of spots in Houston, especially for teal season, that are like that too. Like over 100 groups showed up at this WMA. That's a lottery system, on opening day for like 55 spots. And they were grouping people together. They ended up turning like 20 groups away. So.
Yeah, I've heard the hunting is really good, which is why there's so many people there. But I've heard a lot of horror stories about people getting shot, just like, just people setting up right on the, how it is with those little levees right there, setting up on the other side, shooting over onto your unit. It's just, yeah, I don't know.
We definitely had some pellets on us at a couple of the spots we went to.
Yeah.
That's
that's normal. We get that up here every once in a blue moon.
You get that dove hunting all the time.
Oh yeah.
But
yeah. I shot a bird on opening morning of dove season. We're sitting on a tree line. There's a guy to the left of me by like 20 yards. Guy to the right to me by 20 yards. Not even that far probably, but close, right? But bird comes across. Guy to the left misses it. I smoke it till it drops right in front of me. I get over there, reached down to pick it up, and it came alive and flew right back past me. I spun around and I was trying to be like cautious because I was spinning back towards people. So spun around, and this dude the guy that would have been to my left just smokes it right at the dude at the right. And I'm just like, you just shot at a guy that's like 40 yards from you to try to shoot a dove bird, then went and got it and kept it. And I was just like, all right, man, fine. You could take your one dove bird. That's, more of a pain in the ass for me to deal with than anything. So.
For sure.
Public land. Fun.
Public land.
So did you go out every weekend, Teal, Joel?
I went both days every weekend.
Yeah. Grind it.
Good for you.
I got a baby coming Christmas Day, and so I'm gonna be hitting the ducks.
That's right.
Real hard.
For sure.
Yeah.
For a month and a half.
15th,
Yeah.
And then it's over until next year.
Yeah. Come the new year, you're done.
Even next year will be much more limited than normal, but
for sure. Well, congratulations on that.
For
I
sure.
forgot about that.
Exactly. Ditto.
Very excited.
And y'all just moved also, like all the things going on, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds like
cool.
a fun adventure you're on there.
For sure.
I'm just thinking about getting another dog.
I was thinking the same thing.
I think we all are, aren't we?
Another GSP.
Yep.
I'm thinking about it.
You can move in with me when you tell Whitney that.
She's already on board.
Yeah,
I'm gonna get a big fish
it.
tank and put a bass.
Oh,
in
she
it.
approved it?
Yeah, I got to get an older one though. Rescue.
Bass, I'll help you.
Okay.
We're gonna continue to maintenance the private pond that we're dealing with, and that's my project.
That's your baby.
I'm not getting a dog right now. I don't want that deal.
Y'all are moving in the next couple months. You're gonna get a dog.
Steph's gonna get a dog. Yeah, I'll pet it and maybe put some food out for it. But
Maybe.
it's gonna be duck season. I won't have time for a dog.
You say that.
Then wait till February.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then
Pro tip: wait till February.
Then it's time to shoot pigs.
Well,
Whatever.
What?
I'm too busy.
Always pigs.
Sacrifices have to be made. You either sacrifice part of pig season or duck season.
Pig
Listen.
season.
I'm gonna get little David eventually, but not right now.
David.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with David.
I think you should call your dog Abe.
No, I
Because
don't.
then he'll want to beat it, and that's not fun.
Exactly.
I'll just yell at him all the time.
Just yell at him.
I'm sorry, it's not you.
Damn
It's your
Abe.
name.
Ridiculous.
Now you even hate your name. Jeez, calm down,
No, I
buddy.
don't.
Everybody be nice.
Not in front of the guests.
Everybody be nice.
So, Joel, you just went on a grand adventure to Utah.
I did.
So tell us about that. How, just getting ready. You took place in Hike to Hunt again this year. Where did you end up there?
It takes them so long to figure it out. I think that I got second.
Oh, wow.
I'm not sure. There was a lady who I know was a legitimate competitor who did what I did last year, was just like totally psychotic. I think she was doing some sort of through hike of the southern end of the Appalachian Trail.
Holy crap.
Every day she was dropping like 19 and 20 miles at a time. And I just was like, I'm not gonna try to do this again.
Yeah, last year you went at it.
I'd rather get a good night's sleep and have a relationship with my wife and hang out.
So for everybody listening who doesn't know about Hike to Hunt, why don't you explain and then tell your totals and the time frame and all that stuff?
Okay, so Hike to Hunt is a fundraiser hunting awareness through backcountry hunters and anglers. So the idea is you raise money through hiking. You also can compete for total mileage. So last year it was 60 days. I did 857 miles in 60 days. I mean, part of that I was unemployed, so I was just like hiking like a psychopath. But when I went to Utah last year, I was actually like, other than just the altitude situation, which I cannot recreate in Houston, my legs and my feet were conditioned to hunt, hard, as long as hard as my energy and lungs.
Your lung capacity could, yeah.
That's awesome.
So I think last year when we went, I probably hike 10, 12 miles a day at 8,000 feet of elevation. For I shot my elk on day 6. My buddy shot his on day 5. And that's the hardest hunting I've ever done until this year.
So you're 2 for 2 in Utah.
I'm 2 for 2 in Utah.
Awesome.
So I am fortunate that this buddy of mine who's been a bow hunter longer than me has hunted that area for like 7 or 8 years, and so he sort of has the lay of the land in terms of like water and benches and saddles and this and that, and so that doesn't make taking a shot any easier or getting to them, but it definitely sort of exponentially sped up my trajectory and
put you in the right direction
for sure. So yeah, I mean, it's last year I prepped up on a big group, and we're hunting cows and spikes because the unit that we're hunting is a limited entry bull unit, so it takes 15, 16 years for a non-resident to get a bull tag there, but they're
giants.
They're giant. It's incredible how big the bull elk get there. So I shot a cow elk last year at 37 yards. I came in and got busted by some calves, and just did a couple of cow calls, and they all went back to chewing on bushes or whatever. And I had like a 12-inch square target on her vitals in between some like bushes and branches, and just zipped an arrow right through her, and double lung shot. She ran about 40 yards and dropped dead.
That's awesome.
So this year,
so start at day to give us the full don't spare any expense here.
So here's the thing.
The world is your oyster.
I knew I'm going. My plan is to go elk hunting every year that I'm capable of it for the rest of my life. Period. I'm gonna do it with a bow. Period. If I get an elk, cool. If I don't, cool. For me, the experience of being out there, getting to interact with elk, is that's a success in itself. And then actually shooting one and getting it on the ground and bringing that meat home is just sort of like the cherry on top. That's the way that I went into it last year, and it worked out. And I didn't set any more expectations this year than I did last year. So probably 3 months ago, we're in the middle of this COVID thing, and so we had 5 people in camp last year, and 4 of them were hunting. So 2 of those people very early on in the COVID thing decided they weren't coming. And then it's down to 2 hunters plus this extra guy who was sort of a support, one of my good friends. And so then the other hunter decided he just wasn't going to be able to do it this year. So then it's down to the 2 of us. So it's going to be me and this guy who's not hunting. So he's basically just going to help me do some glassing, work around and just see what we can do. 3 days before I leave, he informs me that he can't go.
Nice.
So I am financially invested, and I'm like, I'm going.
Absolutely.
Period. So I reached out to a couple of people that I knew might be interested in going. Nobody could go. So I packed the truck up and rolled out.
Hey man, what do you think about driving to Utah in 48 hours to go hunt elk?
I got that text from JT Larkin.
Yeah, exactly.
It's an over-the-counter tag. It's only $600, whatever. So nobody could go, obviously, on that short of notice. So I packed the truck up and rolled out. I mean, my wife had her concerns.
Yeah.
I didn't really tell anybody else until after I was like on the way home.
Yeah.
Which is good because I got like a 10-year-old scolding from my dad about the fact.
I can't even imagine.
This alone. I tried to tell him, the most dangerous part of the whole trip was driving there and back.
For sure.
Yeah.
So I roll out at I did a little pit stop and slept overnight at some friends in New Mexico, and then made the final push in. Got in, set up camp, and so where we're hunting is in the Manto La Sal National Forest in southeast Utah, and the area is sort of it's there's like this giant long ridge that sort of forms a point that looks out on these sort of 6 finger ridges that poke out and face it. And so, I set up camp on the on the finger ridge side in a place. There's sort of one of the finger ridges has this giant, it's pretty flat and wide, and there's a big saddle there. So it's sort of a good base of operations from a standpoint of like getting to all the other spots down into the valley and moving around and whatever. So I set up camp sort of up from that flat finger ridge, and I figured it's funny, the last pit stop I made was about an hour from getting into the forest, and I was like super confident, felt great, like solo elk hunt, we're gonna get this done, I'm gonna get out there and hunt hard. And then I got gas at that last gas station and filled up the coolers with ice, and I had this like giant wave of
oh shit, what have I done?
Yeah, I'm about to go out here in the middle of nowhere by myself. So I decided that my only interaction, because there's no cell service out there, was to talk to my phone. So I decided I was just gonna like film, video everything, and just talk through the whole thing, and then put it on my Instagram and a YouTube video later, which was fun. So I'm just talking through it to the phone, and I just, it's like I decided I'm prone to getting frustrated when things don't go my way, and last year on the day that I killed my elk, I'd gotten frustrated, and I was like, I'm done for the day. I'm going back to camp. I'm going to take a nap and get something to eat. And I just happened to run into this guy that I was hunting, one of the guys I was hunting with, and got a little pep talk and decided to keep hunting. And like an hour later, I shot my elk. So as I'm rolling into the forest and setting up camp, I sort of have this discussion with myself, so to speak, about there's no quitting. I'm out here by myself. There's nobody that's going to talk me back into, getting started again. Like, frustration's okay, discouraged is okay, but there's not going to be any quitting. Like, I'm going to hunt as hard as I can from the moment I get there until my dead stop time, 5 days later or whatever it was. And so, I got my camp set up, decided I would, so I had a written hunt plan just in case things got, I got there and there was no elk, right? I had a hunt plan for like, this is the spots that I'm going to look for sign and, whatever else. And if there's nothing in this area, then I'm going to move to a different spot and just sort of change camp and move everything around. So I take a walk out onto this like flat bench, giant bench ridge. And I mean, within 20 minutes of walking away from my camp, I accidentally walked up on a giant bull elk who was taking a nap on that ridge. And he, got up and ran off. And I'm like, that's a good sign.
Yeah. Yep. That's a big sign.
Yeah.
So
they're here.
I figured, I'll just take a walk around and get up sort of on this ridge so I can look down into the valley. And I'm, so I make my way around and I get up on this valley and I'm glassing around, just looking, and I catch like 3 or 4 cows and some calves like down in the draw in the valley below me. And I'm like, this is, it's like, I was pumped. I'm telling you, it's like, because, there's no guarantee that they're still going to be there from last year. They might be in a different state by the time.
Yeah. Right.
By the time we get back. So, but by that time, it's pretty late. It was probably like 6:30. Sunset's like 7:30 at that point. And so I'm like, I don't know where the sort of game trail is to get down this ridge to them. By the time I get down there, it's going to be dark. If I shoot this elk on day 1 in the dark, it's going to take me until 4 o'clock in the morning. I really don't want to deal with all that. So plenty of time. So I just, chalked that into the memory bank and headed back to camp for the night. And so the basic idea for the rest of the time was I knew where there was a water hole. So I planned to spend a bunch of time at that water hole. And I knew where like a creek was with a big wallow from last year. So I was going to, one of the mornings I was going to go take a look at that. There was another bench like 2 ridges over. And so, one day I was going to go out there and like try to be on that bench at sunrise just to see, if there was any action or what they were doing, if they were moving up or down the ridge. And I mean, I went out onto that same spot the next morning to glass, just to like get the lay of the land. And there's down in that valley, just past where I had seen the elk the night before, there's an even bigger group with a big bull and a bunch of cows. And so I'm like, I mean, reading everyone's stories in some of these hunting Facebook groups over the last month of like not seeing an elk, not hearing an elk, forest fires, snowstorms. Like, I feel incredibly fortunate to have been in a spot where like right off the bat I was in elk and I had opportunities, because some of those folks hunted hard and some of their hunts got ruined and they never saw an elk, and that's a real bummer. Yeah. It would have been very disappointing to get there and not have any sign or any animals at all. So, so I'm like, I'm gonna put a stock on these. I'm just gonna like work my way down that draw, do some like cow calling and see if I can sneak into shooting range. So my sort of designated range is about 40 yards. I will take a shot over like 41, 42, but really I want it to be under 40. Just to be safe.
Plus 40 is reserved for pigs, right?
What's that?
Shoot over 40 yards at pigs.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe 50, 60.
Yeah, you're like, well, send it.
490 grain arrow at 286 feet per second. So,
take care of business.
It'll get the job done. So I sneak down, and the problem that I ran into the entire week is the wind. For whatever reason, the wind was like awful. It was just like swirling wind every single day. And so I got down there, and I got to where I could hear them pretty good. So I was probably like 50 yards from the group. And the wind shifted. And I mean, immediately after I felt the wind blowing on my back toward them, they started barking and they started moving out. And so just like a desperation, I decided I'm just going to start throwing out like frantic calf calls just to see if I can get them to like come back around. And they responded a bunch, but I think what they were saying was, hey, you better hurry the fuck up because we're getting out of here.
Yeah. Right.
So
we got to
go. So that was, it probably took 2 hours from the point that I saw the elk at first, making my way back around that ridge and down into the draw and working toward the valley down this game trail. It was probably 2 hours before I got to the elk. And then within 45 seconds, they were in another dimension. It's crazy how
fast they move out. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
Always.
They said it's going to be great. It's going to be an adventure. Not to mention that there is a strip of private land that's owned by like the Utah Nature Conservancy or somebody in the middle of this valley. It's underneath the big peak, the big point. And so there's moo cows just like everywhere. And if you've been elk hunting where there's moo cows, you know that if you startle the moo cows, the elk don't like that. And the moo cows go in, I mean, every time they go in the exact same direction you're trying to go. And they all go at once. And it's like, you know, they just tear down the whole forest as they go. And every elk in the area goes to the universe.
Yeah.
So by the time I got down into that, all the way down into the bottom, the elk were nowhere to be found, and it was nothing but cows. And so I just sort of worked my way back around and up, and you know, around the bottom of that ridge, and then back up. And I never saw any more. I never had any more interactions for that one. So you know, I go back, eat lunch. You know, and then that night I'm going to sit at this water hole. So I drive out and around and down to this water hole that's sort of like, if you're looking at these fingers, it's like finger 7. I was camping at like finger 2, so it's a long way to walk and then come back in the dark. So I drove my truck around the back and down, and water hole's bone dry. Of course. I mean, bone dry. Last year it was like there was still some mud. This year it was like dead. It was bone dry. There's no elk. There's no sign of elk. So I'm like, well, I'm already down here, so I'm just gonna walk up, sort of up the draw, and just see if I hear anything. And I ended up hearing a bull like way up on the top of the ridge at the top of this draw. And so I just sit and waited a little bit, and you know, he bugled 2 or 3 more times, and I can tell that he's starting to get closer to me now. And so I start, you know, I drop the pack, and I start like creeping up, you know, toward where they're at, and they hung up. You know, I probably got to about 100 yards from them, and the wind shifted again, and you know, they were gone just as soon as I heard them. So. That's just, you know, that's the way it goes, I think. And then, you know, so the next, that I failed to mention that the first night when I went to sleep, you know, it's like I've slept out in the wilderness before, but I've always had people in camp. And like last year, a mule deer or something came walking through camp and was like looking around and, you know, nibbling on stuff. And I, you know, so I'm like terrified in my sleeping bag with my sidearm in my hand, thinking there's a bear outside the tent, and it's, you know, it's just a mule deer. So what I realized on day 2 is that I had set up my camp on like a major game trail. So
nice.
All night long, there's critters just passing by the tent.
Creatures.
I wake up every time, and I'm like,
oh God, Sam Squanch.
Is that a human being? Is that a bear? Is it a deer? Is it an elk? Is it a skunk? What's going on? So that was great entertainment for the entirety of the trip.
Sleeping in the woods by yourself is just quite an experience in and of itself. Just
every time, no matter what. And every time, even, you know, like I'm going to be sleeping up on 2 pieces of private land this weekend by myself. And I've slept at one of these places by myself plenty of times. But it's still like, as soon as you shut off all the lights and lay down, it's like, oh God, what's out there? It's like, there's nothing here. There's like, but something takes over every time.
Well, I even get that way, like real early in the morning, like sitting out in the woods.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You know, just by yourself.
Or walking out to the stand at pre-dawn.
And you turn off your headlamp because you're like, all right, it's getting close. To turn off the headlamp, and then like you hear just like a little rustle of leaves. Like, what was that?
Yeah.
What was that over there?
Oh God.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah, man.
And I always feel like you're an idiot. You're an idiot.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? This is embarrassing and no one's here. What are you scared of? And it's like, I don't know what it is, though. It's probably an armadillo, but I'm terrified of it.
Oh.
Armadillos are loud little crazy things.
you said you saw me when I was wade fishing out there, and I guarantee you all it was a splash hitting the back, like something hit the back, like just kind of pulled it over, a splash right behind me. But I swear to God, I was like, oh God, what was that? Like.
Yeah, Austin called it out. He's like, Abe's out there freaking out because a fish just touched him.
It was just one of those things.
You can't see the bottom, you know what it is.
You know what? Yeah, you don't expect it. It's definitely startling.
I get it, but seeing it from a distance,
it's
like,
hilarious.
oh God! It's like
Nate was making fun of me because I got stuck in the mud, and I was like, I guess it looked like he thought I stepped on a stingray because I was like trying to get my feet out, and I was like falling backwards and catching myself, and like it looked like I was trying to do like the Russian dance in waist deep water.
Yes. Yeah. But back to Joel's story. Yeah, you hear all these night creatures.
I'm telling you, the last season during Big Duck, I was, we hunt predominantly in the marsh, and I'm walking out to retrieve a duck, and I walk into a log. I'm like, God, and I like try to push it out of the way, and I look down, and it is I swear it was a 5-foot-long tail, alligator tail.
Whew.
Hell yes.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
I kicked.
That's why Houston's like,
And so he just swishes away real slow.
For sure.
Yeah, you talk about walking on water, man.
Dude, my buddy told me that he's never seen anybody moving waders that fast. Like,
I can imagine.
Yeah, forget that duck. That's alligator fodder.
That is
no way.
And I have a pinch in the back of my waders that's permanent.
Yeah. I promise you, forever going forward duck hunting, I will be paranoid about anything that touches my waders.
Somehow you stained neoprene.
Oh man. Yeah, just a very difficult thing to deal with when you're when you don't have any control and you're in somebody else's territory. You're just
that's his pond.
Yeah, exactly. Like, that's a different situation, like you said. You're out in the middle of a national forest, or ways away from anything remotely close to civilization. And then we talk about on these little pieces of private property we're deer hunting on, we get freaked out. The worst we're going to see is a coyote that wants nothing to do with us. Yeah. That's the absolute worst.
Yeah,
and it's still just like super jumpy.
That first night I was out at the farm when I took down that big boar. I was like hearing stuff rustling around me. I'm like, are there pigs behind me? Am I going to get charged? Like freaking out like I'm going to shoot. I got to shoot something, And then it's nothing.
Nothing. It's a squirrel or an armadillo.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah. Grinch running over things side by side.
Yeah.
So multiple times I woke up in the middle of the night certain that a bear was trying to get into the bed of my truck. It's probably a skunk or a possum or something.
Mm-hmm.
So I woke up. So let's see, that's like day. The first full day is over with. So I wake up the next morning. And my intention is to like hike over to one of the fingers again and check out this bench. And it was raining when I woke up, so I got a later start than I wanted to. So I hike up there, and I was probably 15 minutes later than I wanted to be getting to that bench. And by the time I got onto that ridge, there was already elk moving off of the bench that I was trying to get to and rolling down the mountain. And they probably passed me at 50, 60 yards. Like a group of 8 or 10 of them, a bunch of cows and a spike. I didn't see a bull. So I figured, well, I'll see if I can sneak down, and just stay in contact with them. And, again, it's like I got down to the bottom of the valley. There's cows. They run away. The entire valley empties out.
Comes out, yeah.
So what did happen at that point was I sort of walk into this clearing at the bottom of this valley, and I look to my right, and I'm like checking, making sure I'm not going to spook anything up. And I look to my left, and I look back to my left, and there's a giant black bear about 40 yards from me, just staring at me.
Yeah, just like, can I eat you?
And I'm like, and he's like, what are you doing? I'm thinking, so we probably, it felt like several minutes. But it was probably more like 10 or 15 seconds of having a little stare down. And I went ahead and like pulled the strap off my bear spray that I had on my chest harness, just just in case. And he decided he didn't want anything to do with it and took off in the other direction. But that was like, okay, so there's bears here. That's cool. So I just worked my way around, and I ended up working sort of to the north side of that flat bench ridge, and I came, so I heard a bull bugling here and there off in the distance, so I climbed up, and I'm working my way down, and so I caught him on the glass, and so I'm sort of working around them to the other side of the ridge so that I can see if I can get past him to where I thought the cows might be. And so I got into like 40 yards from him, and I'm hiding in some trees, and I got to a place where there was like nowhere else for me to go, and I'm hitting cow calls at him, and he is screaming back at me every single time that I cow call. And if nothing else had happened on this trip, that bull responding back to me over and over again.
Great experience.
Drive.
Can't even imagine. Yeah.
Totally worth the drive. It was like a giant 6x6 bull, just laying there in the grass, not giving a fuck. And so I realized once I get him, bugling at me, that all the cows are behind him. So I have now walked all the way around to the up into this draw and then back down the other side of the next ridge to get to him. And I realized I'm going to have to backtrack all the way back the way I came, up the ridge and then back down and try to get around behind them on the other side to get a shot on any of these cows without spooking all of them out. So I work my way back all the way around, and I'm sliding down real quiet like on the game trails. And I mean, I passed him in terms of like moving down the valley. I passed him, and so I'm sort of in the realm of where I thought the cows were. And they're all taking a nap, just laying in the shade. And I make my way into them, and I'm probably 30 yards from, I'm in shooting range, getting ready, and then I blew up some grouse or something.
Oh.
And if you've done this, if you've startled up some grouse, you know that it's like pandemonium in the woods.
Oh,
yeah.
So immediately all the elk are on alert. Everybody's up, everybody's looking around. And so I do a couple of cow calls, and like an idiot, instead of waiting for them to calm back down, I keep starting to move in. And of course, there's two cows in the trees, like right in front of me, staring at me.
Of course.
And they were like, nope, not having this. And I mean, it's incredible how fast these animals can move.
Oh, yeah.
When they decide they're gone, they're gone.
Up the side of the ridge and over the next ridge, I mean, in minutes. And I couldn't hear them anymore. And I'm like, I'm just like, God bless. So it was probably, I think at that point I had been hunting for like 8.5 hours from the time that I left camp. And so I'm like, I'm going to go back and get something like real to eat and then start this over. So I moved back up to camp to get something to eat. And I decided that night I was going to sort of walk away from my camp up, past the flat sort of bench ridge and move into this next ridge where they had gone to, and just to see maybe they went up there and stopped. And so I get up, I sort of make my way up onto this ridge, and I'm moving across it, and I hear this bull bugle again. And so I hit him with a cow call, and he responds to me. Hit him with another cow call, he responds to me, and so I start moving in again. I mean, at that point, I'm probably 300 yards away from him, 400 yards away, so it's like not very loud. And I got into this like scrub oak patch, and there's like a clear field in front of me, so I'm trying to move around that so I can stay in the cover. And by that time, I'm probably 100 yards from him, so I don't know where any of the other elk are. But he keeps screaming at me, and eventually he gets so pissed off. I mean, he's screaming at me, he's chuckling, and I keep hitting him with the cow calls, and he starts coming into me. And at this point, I still don't know where any of the other elk are. And he gets to probably 25 yards, and I mean, he's like raking everything and pissing all over himself, and I can hear him like licking his lips and just like really getting worked up. And again,
So Abe
this is if I don't ever arrow another elk, that experience was so amazing, dude. I just can't
Just
even
to be that close
for
and
sure.
interacting.
Such a big animal, like, and just there.
To interact like that is incredible. It is incredible. So that's not the end though, because he came into 8 yards.
God dang!
10 yards away from me, and he comes around the corner, and I'm talking like 7 by 7 bull. Okay, his rack was like 6 feet wide.
Yeah.
It's the biggest elk I've ever seen in my life.
I can't
He came around that corner and realized that I was not a cow elk and was very surprised.
Whoa!
And he went into another dimension again.
You got me.
Gone.
Fool me once.
I'm telling you though, if I at whatever point when I'm like 50 and I get this bull tag, it's going to take about 45 minutes if they're still in that area, because they don't get hunted. They're not pressured because it's such a limited tag for the bulls that, even residents, I don't think have a good shot. I actually ran into a local, like the only human that I ran into out there, period, was this local guy that I passed on a road as I was going down to that water hole the like second night. And he told me that he had pulled that tag. It took him 26 years to pull the tag.
Oh my
God. So.
Well, I'm a little late to the party then.
I don't know when it'll happen, but I got 3 points, and I'm just going to keep buying points until.
I mean, next time you go, let me know. I'll go shoot a cow with you if it's over the counter, like you said.
Dude, the thing is, there's nobody out there too, because nobody else is dumb enough to work that hard to shoot a cow out.
For sure. Whatever.
I say that I've never hunted anywhere else. I've never hunted elk anywhere else, so I don't know.
How long of a drive is it out there for you?
It's like 18 hours if you do it all the way through.
That's not bad.
To
3 more hours than what we did.
So yeah, I mean it's a doable drive in a day if you get up. So he runs off, but they stay in the vicinity. So I've now identified sort of like there's a spike there. There's a pretty good sized spike there. There's a bunch of cows and calves, and so I'm
Can you take a spike?
What's that?
Could you take a spike, or is it just cow only?
Yeah, spike cow tag. So, but that this last year I never saw a spike that was close enough to even worry about. This time, while I was having that interaction with the giant bull, a spike. I was actually videoing him come in with my phone, and I realized out of the corner of my eye there's a spike coming along my right side about 20 yards in the brush, and so I threw the phone down and I got an arrow knocked and got ready in case he came past the bushes and gave me an open shot, but he stopped right at the edge and then turned back around and went back up in the woods, and that's when
you were just covered up. That's awesome.
I'm telling you, it's nuts. It is nuts. There's no guarantee that they'll always be in that area, but it's been absolutely bananas the last 2 years. But it's expensive for a cow tag, number one, and very hard hunting. So whatever.
Portland's a long drive. Portland, Utah.
Yeah.
Lake Tawakoni, Utah. Really far.
So I followed them a little bit, and they, I was getting them to respond. The cows and the calves were responding to me, and the bull's still bugling, but they're all moving in the other direction. So it's starting, I'm getting to sunset time again, and I'm like, even if I get this elk in, do I really want to spend the entire night in the dark, quartering
dealing with it? Yeah.
because I'm, you talk about paranoid in the tent.
And you'd already seen a bear.
Yeah, having open meat laying around, I was
in
like
the dark. Yeah, no.
Covered in
build
covered
a
in blood up to
fire.
your elbows.
Build a fire.
Yeah.
300 degrees around you.
Yeah, exactly.
So I, once I realized they were not going to come back to me, I just sort of was like, I pushed it hard today. I'm going to go back, get a good night's sleep, get something to eat, and start it over in the morning. I mean, and by that time, I had so much interaction that it was like I was feeling real confident that if I could just not blow the stalk right at the end, if I could just get the wind right, because that had been a problem the whole time, and then not have some grouse blow up or whatever, cows ruin it. I was going to have an opportunity to get a shot.
No doubt.
I woke up the next day, and I mean, before I even rolled out of camp, I woke up the next day, and like I said, I'm probably a mile, maybe 3/4 of a mile from the saddle part of this flat bench ridge. Down below the ridge where I had been the day before I even rolled out of camp, I'm drinking my coffee, and there are 4 bulls all just screaming at each other, just bugle fest. And so I'm like, here we go, game on. I'm just going to get in here and I'm going to pick a bull, and whichever one has the most cows, I'm going to get in and, figure it out. And so they're all screaming and I'm doing cow calls, and, everybody's riled up, and I located one of the bulls. I could see him. He was probably 150 yards from me. And so I start making my way down toward him. And then I realized that it's the only one that doesn't have any cows with it.
Word. You sound like me right now.
The other three just disperse into the ether. They just vanish into thin air. And so, so I walk back up the ridge, and I hear one of the other bulls screaming basically back where I had been the night before, up on this next ridge top. And so I decided, I'm going to make my way around and go up that ridge top. So I got to the next, to the tip of the next drop, right? So it's straight down basically into this valley, and they're making their way down this draw into the valley, working, sort of up and down on the ridge, and so I'm creeping through there and smashing, scratching myself up and tearing my pants and, banging through scrub oaks and whatever. And I can hear that I'm getting closer to them, because every now and then I'll do a cow call and just try to keep track of where they're at so I can keep moving in that direction. And so I gained a little ground, and I got to this spot, and I realized that up the slope, at that point I'm on the 60-degree slope, just following the game trail. And I look up and I realize there's a big cow, elk, staring at me. And so I throw some cow calls at her. She's not impressed with that, and she starts doing the barking. I'm like, well, this is over with. But then she stopped and stayed there for a little while and just did the barks, and they all sort of milled around. So I got an arrow knocked. I ranged her at 42 yards. I'm like, I'm going to take, if she turns where I have a broadside shot, I'm taking this shot.
Yeah, because on an elk, you've got such a big kill zone.
Dude, I mean, it's like a platter.
Exactly.
To get a kill shot. It's
if you could hit a laptop at 40 yards, yeah.
Yeah,
you'll hit some lungs.
You're going to get both lungs. So she ends up not turning the way I need her to get a shot off.
Of course.
And start working down the ridge, and I move up to where they were, and it's so frustrating in that situation, because they're so quiet when they leave, and they're so good at it's if you haven't done it, you don't realize how quickly and how easily they move just up the mountain. Oh, hey, let's go up the mountain. And then all of a sudden they're gone, just vanish into thin air. So I got up there, and I'm like 4 miles in, at that point, to like just moving around the area. And they vanish into thin air. And so I'm like, well, I'll go, so I go to the top of this ridge, and I decide I'm going to make my way back. And I'm coming back down, toward where I had come from, basically. And I hear this bull bugle again. And I realize he has gone back to the same place that he was that morning, which ends up being the same place that I saw them the day before, where I had to walk around the entirety of the ridge to get back behind them.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm like, well, no quitting. Here we go. And, dropped some layers off, had a little snack on the way, and, just moved into it. And, so, I'm creeping back down the same trail I came down, 2-3 hours before that. And I finally make contact with them, and I'm like probably 70, 80 yards from where they're milling around down below me. And so I keep creeping. I got into 60 yards. I ranged one of them at like 55, but they start to sort of slowly mill along in the opposite direction. And so I'm like, this is it. I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna give it one last stalk right now. And whenever I lose these elk, I'm going back to camp and eating lunch, and I'm gonna be done with it until it's time to do the evening hunt. And so I'm making my way along this ridge, and I'm staying in contact with them. And I realize the only way that I'm gonna keep up is if I can make some noise, instead of being like dead quiet. And so I decided, I got up all the way to the top of this bench ridge. And so I'm like jogging basically to sort of cut them off along the top of this ridge. And I get to this little clearing, and there's some scrub oaks. And I realize as I creep up to these scrub oaks that they are trickling up and onto the saddle where I was at. And I'm like,
here goes.
At that point, that's when the heart rate spiked, and it's like, okay, it's go time. So I got the rangefinder out, and I ranged this tree that some of these calves had passed at like 35 yards. I'm like, okay, I'm just, I'm gonna aim for 35 yards, and when one of these cows comes past, that's like big enough that I want to shoot, because I'd made a determination that I didn't want to shoot a young one, and I did not want to shoot one that had a calf with it, just because,
right.
That was just a decision I made.
Sure.
And so I'm looking for a big, mature cow with no calf. And sure enough, there's probably 15 elk milling through this spot that I'm staring at. And, I got my arrow nocked, and this one big cow that doesn't have a calf anywhere around her that I can see, comes milling along and stops right in between these two trees that I have ranged. And I mean, I pulled that arrow back and just let it go, and I watched it zip. I mean, it zipped right through her, like slow motion. Last year, I had the same experience. I was looking down, and I watched this arrow in slow motion just zip right through that elk. And I heard it hit like a rib or something, and then I could hear it audibly go, just like it popped a balloon. And I went right through her, and I heard the arrow like fly into the bushes, and she like picked her head up and like looked around, and then just sort of like wandered off maybe 20 yards. I don't think she even knew what happened, because she didn't react in a way. The one that I shot last year, I mean, it bolted, it sprinted up the mountain and around out of sight. and then I heard the crash like 4 seconds later. This one just like, walked along 20, 25 yards, and I lost sight of her. But then I started hearing this like wheezing, and then I heard her hit the ground. So I'm like,
There it is.
it happened again.
Great success.
And I had dropped my pack like probably 3/4 of a mile back from that spot, and so I'm like, okay, I'm pretty certain that I heard her crash over dead, but
Start dropping pins on Onyx.
I dropped the pin where I took the shot. I went back to get my pack. I came back, and then I orient myself to what direction the arrow went. I go around. I'm looking in the bushes. I find the arrow, and it's like covered in bright red blood. So I'm like, this elk is definitely
Money.
And so I sort of make my way in the direction that I saw her go, and she was laying probably 30 yards from where I hit her, and the arrow had gone through a rib, both lungs, and then out the back of her front shoulder on the other side.
Wow.
And then it probably went 40 feet past where it went out, where it left that front shoulder.
What broadheads are you shooting?
Iron Will.
Nice. Everybody argues about them. I think there's so many good broadheads now, but I always like to ask. Right? I haven't killed an elk.
I'm a believer. They're expensive, but I've zipped an arrow through 2 elk from 35 plus yards away. One of them through a rib, through a shoulder, and out the other side 40 feet. So I'm gonna keep shooting them.
Yeah,
as you
Should.
should.
Ain't broken.
Yeah, don't fix it.
Understandably.
I'm probably not gonna shoot the $30 broadhead at a pig.
No.
I'll stick with some Montex or something else that I've got.
Double-aught slug.
So then it's like, then I come to the realization that now the actual work.
Oh yeah, it only gets harder now.
Yeah.
It had occurred to me that that quartering up an elk alone was going to be was going to be
Work.
Was going to be some work. But I had no idea. I really had no idea. I actually, I don't know where I picked it up, but I was listening to some podcast. Last year, I did not cut the knees off before we packed them out. So we had like an extra 10 pounds on each pack, which is just like stupid.
Yeah.
So I had listened to somebody talking on a podcast about the fact that it's easier to maneuver them around while you're quartering it up if you cut the knee off right off the bat. And so I cut the knees off right off the bat, and then started this skinning, and got the I think from the first cut that I made until all of the meat was in bags and like in a tree was maybe 3 hours, 2.5, 3 hours. It took it felt like an eternity. And I've heard people talk about that taking much longer than that, but I'm telling you, 3 hours from the first cut to getting that meat in the bag felt like an absolute eternity.
Oh, yeah.
And then I realized once I finished, I did not realize until I put the very last meat in the bag and started getting my pack, getting my pack ready to put the quarter on the frame, that I had not had any water in a long time.
Yeah, you're like, I think I'm missing something here.
Yeah, I saw
Something's
that
not
one, that Instagram story of yours. You're like, I haven't had enough water. I'm not in good shape. I was like, oh God, Joel's gonna die. Like, he just killed an elk. He can't die. Who's gonna do hike to hunt next year?
I felt I was feeling a little panicked right then. That it had been a long time since I had any water. I was totally out, and I realized in that moment, right before I made that little video, that I was not sweating anymore either.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I'm definitely dehydrated. So we need to get this done. So I put a rear quarter in, just because I like to keep things organized. I have a 6th meat bag for just the back straps and the tenderloins and the Whistler cut. Shout out
There you go.
And it's no joke. That thing is like a foot long and probably as wide as a quarter. that you pull out of the neck of an elk. I mean, it's probably bigger on a bull, but on this cow that I shot, it was pretty big. So I take the choice meat bag and I put that on my pack frame with one of the rear quarters, and I head to camp. It's probably a mile. I hear these podcasts and stories of people having to pack elk out like 4, 5, 6 miles. I cannot.
Can't fathom it.
That is going to be on another level, because 1 mile with a rear quarter with maybe 100 plus pounds of meat on the frame was brutal. In addition to the fact that the whole time I'm like trying to pull every last drop of water out of that water bladder. My mouth is dry, and I'm starting to think, I get like halfway to camp, and I'm starting to think maybe I need to like drop the pack. Maybe I just need to leave this thing here. I need to just get to camp safely, get some water, come back for the pack. And I just kept thinking, fuck that.
Just keep going.
Yeah. Don't be a little bitch. Just get it done.
Shit.
I made it back to camp finally, threw that meat in the cooler, hydrated up, and so I still have 1 rear quarter, 2 front legs, plus the random meat bag, hanging in a tree. And so I decided I tried to get my truck down a little closer on a trail, so it was probably like 3/4 of a mile instead of a mile. I got back to that meet, and I'm like, there is absolutely no way that I am going to do 2 more trips. And so I loaded a rear quarter and a front quarter up on my pack frame, and then I carried the other front leg and the random meat bag and just went.
No way.
Man shit.
No.
Man shit.
Holy shit.
Jesus.
I'm not coming back for a 3rd trip. So if I have to stop every 100 yards and just lay it down and rest, that's what I'm going to do, but I'm not coming back.
I'm done with this.
I'm done with this. That's it.
Jesus Christ. That is intense.
So, I mean, it was probably 50 to 60 yards at a time. I would set that front leg and the meat bag down, and get a little breather, and then just move forward. By the time I'm 300 yards from the truck, I'm just counting steps. I'm like, okay, we're gonna get 30 steps, and then we'll rest.
Gosh.
It's amazing how you go in that focus mode.
Yep.
Like the just focus on something and get it done.
If I do 30 steps 10 more times, I'm at the truck.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I just stared at my feet and thought about getting that meat in the cooler, and just powered through it. And all the hike to hunt miles, like last year when I was like, I'm going to win this thing, I'm going to crush everybody's soul, whatever. Like that mentality is what I've like brought that back to my mind, and I'm like, I'm going to get this done, and I'm going to only do it in 2 trips, and that's it. And I got it back, and got everything in the coolers, and I just was like, dude, that was the most challenging thing mentally and physically from the point that I shot that. Well, really from the point that I left camp that morning, because it was such a bitch chasing those elk around the ridge and then back up and around, and then taking the shot and then quartering the whole thing up and then bagging it up and getting it back to the camp. Dude, it's the most challenging physical and mental thing that I have ever completed. Period. So, and it's crazy to me to think about people doing this 5, 6, 7, 8 miles into the backcountry and then doing that alone. I'm just not. I don't think that that's for me.
Yeah, I agree with you. Because you do hear a lot of those podcasts and talks and all this. It's like, oh yeah, but hearing from a person I know who's in better shape than myself, and kills hike to hunt every year, going, screw that. Yeah, definitely not for me either. Nope.
It was rough.
Take a lesson learned.
And and then it's like I got the meat in the coolers, and then I thought, it's like 7:00, 7:15 or so at night. I took the shot about 1:00. Last bag goes into the cooler at camp about 7:15, 7:30, and I'm like, I'm not spending one more night here.
Yeah, I think I texted you. It's like, dude, holy shit.
Yeah. I had like a day or two delay on uploading the videos that I made, in addition to the fact that by the time I shot the elk, I was finished. So, it's like I had all this like great, self-talk on the videos for 3 days prior to shooting the elk, and then it's like just nothing
Out.
because the priority changed completely.
Yep.
And so I packed up camp, and I was like rolling out of the forest by 8 p.m. And I'm like, I basically am like rolling on an adrenaline dump from the whole thing. And in addition to the fact that I had like 2 packets of Mountain Ops Ignite, so I was like vibrating.
Yeah, I can imagine.
That's some good stuff.
And I'm like, I'm just gonna drive until I'm too tired to drive safely, and just take a nap in the truck or find a hotel or whatever, and I'm going home, because I had gotten terrible sleep every night for whatever reason, between this like unending game trail and just the paranoia and whatever else. And I also took an air mattress out there, thinking I'm going to live the Cadillac lifestyle and put this air mattress in my tent. And that was not a good idea, because the air mattress has no insulation.
You cold.
Unlike the sleeping pad that has some insulation from the cold on the ground, all of that cold on the ground just goes right through the air mattress. So in addition to the fact that it's uncomfortable, I'm also freezing all night.
Where was the temperature swings while you were there?
It got down probably to 40 degrees at night, and then it's 75, 80 during the day.
Gotcha.
So it's a pretty good swing from like real chilly, like good duck hunting weather in the morning when I wake up, to like once I get past lunchtime, it's like
sweating,
75, 80, sweating. So it's a pretty significant,
for sure,
layer change. But I rolled out of there and drove all the way to Albuquerque before I got tired. I drove.
Wow.
I got up that morning at 6. Drank my coffee, started hunting, put the last meat in the cooler at 7:30, rolled out of camp at 8, and I drove till 3:30 in the morning before I got tired from just the adrenaline.
God.
Killed it.
And my intention was to find a hotel and like just take a shower and wash the elk off me, and sleep in a bed. And in New Mexico, because of the COVID thing, their capacity is at like 25%. So every hotel is booked. And I'm just like, well, I guess I'll just drive until I get tired. And I found a rest stop and took a nap for like 3 hours, and drove the rest of the way the next day. So.
Wow.
And then on short notice, my buddy came over, like, I think I got home on Thursday night. Is that right? Yeah, I got home on Thursday night. Saturday, my buddy comes over, and we process the whole elk on that Saturday.
Man, that's efficiency right there.
Yeah.
Look at you.
I ended up with, and he's like a wizard with my buddy Tom. He's like a wizard with getting deer processed, and he's never processed an elk. So he, like, the whole time, he's continuously amazed at all these things that you would normally just like throw in the grind pile because they're small, or they got, like a sinew or something through them. He's like, oh, dude, this is a roast. That's a steak, this and that. And, I ended up filled the freezer up again.
So how many pounds of deboned, vacuum sealed meat is in the freezer from that elk?
I mean, I don't know the poundage, but it's enough to fill up a 110 quart cooler.
That's awesome.
Okay.
Cut up and vacuum sealed, plus like 30 pounds, 35 pounds worth of meat that's like cut into chunks and ready to grind up for sausage and just ground
hamburgers.
I haven't had the opportunity to go get the fat yet to throw it in the grinder and get the last part done. But I probably got 8 or 10, 2 or 3 pound bags of just grind meat.
That's awesome.
Different random
Crazy.
spots. Plus the back straps, back straps are like
a football.
They're like 4 feet long and as big of a diameter as a softball. So some of those I cut into like 8-inch chunks. Some of them I cut into 4-inch chunks and then did like cutlets. And we're eating good.
Yeah.
Congratulations,
You're not struggling
man.
over there.
That's awesome.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So it was a pretty amazing experience. I don't think I'll ever do the solo hunt again.
Yeah.
No.
It's always nice to have a buddy with you.
It was brutal. It is nice to have the story to tell after the fact, but I don't think I ever want to do it again.
Yeah.
I can imagine.
So
Solo hunting is a different beast, Fun to say you've done it, but
Yeah,
now it's time to-
that internal struggle when you're on a solo hunt is one of the worst things ever.
it's tough.
Because like when you have your buddies with you, your buddies kind of push you. Like if your buddy goes a little further, you're like, well, I can't not go further with him.
I don't want to look like
You
an
know, like,
asshole. Yeah,
when-
I gotta
yeah,
keep
yeah,
up with this guy.
And you always have that one time where you tell your buddy, you're like, if you want to go back to the camp, we can totally go back to the camp. And,
I ain't
and do
afraid. What are you
this.
talking about?
And you're just waiting for them. But if they're like, nah, man, we need to go a little bit further, you're like, okay, man, we'll go a little further. I agree with that.
Yeah,
like,
we should
I'm
totally
not
do that.
tired. I
Yeah.
just you
More
look
steps.
you
I'm
look
just making sure
tired.
you're okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. Are you
know,
good? You're good.
yeah.
I'm good.
Yep.
That's how it goes.
Totally.
absolutely.
That's how softball goes, right, Abe?
Yeah.
That's where I'm about to head to.
Yay, team. Make sure you
Got to do something besides hunt all the time.
Yeah, you should sleep.
making field goals and doing all the
Kicking.
stuff.
Yeah, kickball.
Uh-huh.
High fives.
Well,
High five.
High five. Well, Joel, that's an incredible story, man. Can't thank you enough for jumping on and telling it.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that with us, man.
Yeah, just
Thank you for having me.
For sure, man.
So nice
After
and-
seeing all your videos and stuff, I was like, I want to hear the full recount of.
you need to
what's up?
plan on coming up here and watching a million cormorants like we did last year together.
Yeah.
Here's the deal. Is Abe took you cormorant watching. I'll take you duck hunting.
Oh, dude. Nice.
Kick burn.
Listen,
Burn.
I've seen a greenhead exactly one time in the wild.
No, I can fix that.
Yeah.
Randomly, a pair of mallards flew through the marsh for some reason because they were lost, I guess.
Yeah.
And they passed by us before we ever saw them. And so it would be cool to come shoot some, different ducks.
I got a guy that can hook you up with that.
Exactly.
I'd find you some
Yeah.
mallards.
Anytime that you guys are on the coast down by Houston and you want to brave the alligator water,
I'm down with
I'll
that.
come. I ain't bringing my dog, but I'll come.
yeah. See, when y'all were talking about dogs earlier, I'm like, I would love to get a duck dog and like do the training and have the cool experience with the duck dog, but I'm real
Yeah, man.
sketchy about
That scares
having
me.
a dog in the marsh.
I'd be way more upset if an alligator bit my dog than bit my leg.
Yeah, I'm
as,
fine.
as fucked up as that sounds, like I'd be like,
Sounds
oh, that
like-
hurts.
sounds
Like,
like-
yeah, just cut it off below the knee. Prosthetics are great
Yeah.
now.
We must protect him at
But if
all
my dog
costs.
got bit, I'd be like, all right, we're gonna go on an alligator extermination mission now and kill
Yeah,
every
exactly.
one of them forever. And ever.
Forever.
Well, y'all have an open invitation anytime you're down
Do
here.
you see redheads down your way or cinnamon teal?
Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
I have not seen cinnamon teal, but we do see redheads occasionally. Tons of gadwall,
Yeah.
tons of bluebill, tons of teal. But here and there, I shot my first pintail last year. Used a taxidermist.
Yes.
Widgeon here and there. We
All
actually, in that same marsh that we saw the two mallards, on a different day, we had a group of 8 wood ducks fly through.
We get a pile of those up here.
Where did you guys come from?
They got lost.
Yeah.
They had too much to drink in Louisiana and kept going.
Where did you come from? Where did you go?
How many hand grenades?
4 of them stayed with us.
Yeah.
So.
That's awesome.
But yeah, anytime y'all want.
Yeah, man, I'd love to get down there and hunt with you.
Yeah,
we see all those ducks up here, but not near as much. I mean, I've shot gadwall, widgeon, all of it. Definitely, I haven't shot any bluebill, so that'd be cool. Yeah,
it's gonna be interesting this year because they dropped the limit on bluebills from 3 to 1.
Really?
And so now we're gonna have to be a lot. The last 2 or 3 years it's been 3 per person, and it's like you just shoot. You see big ducks, you shoot, and we'll figure out once we get to like 2 a person.
Yeah,
we'll start paying a little more attention. Yeah.
Okay, now we're gonna be a little more, be
cognizant.
a little bit more aware of what's flying in. But now it's like with 1, you have 4 people out there. You have these big groups of 15 or 20 bluebill fly in, and everybody shoots twice, and then all of a sudden you're in trouble.
Yeah, no doubt.
We fucked up.
Yeah.
Somebody at the marsh we hunted this past Saturday shot a big old mile duck.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's like hard to not tell the difference between a blue.
Yeah. Your Honor. When died of COVID, I just didn't want the meat to go to waste.
We're gonna rule this one
Joel,
a COVID death.
We thank you enough, man. Like I said, come up here. We'll come down there. Let's do some hunting together again this year.
Love it.
Let's make a plan. We'll talk off air.
Thank you guys for listening. What did you say?
I said we'll make a plan. We'll talk off air. Abe's got softball.
Yeah, he's got to go sports ball.
Sports balls. Well, thank you guys for
Joel,
listening.
thank you so much. That was a great story, man. It's good to catch up with you.
Awesome. Later.
Bye.
Stormwater Creek is the best. Grinch, the captain. Abe, the helper. Jordan, the problem solver. I hope you like Stormwater Creek. Stormwater Creek.